My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line is open. We're in the Element Wealth studios. And Nina Parikh is joining me from the Mississippi Film Office. Nina, it's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Scott. Thanks for thinking of us and the industry, the film industry.
Absolutely. You know, I saw some pictures shared from friends of mine on the coast last week of John Travolta on the coast filming, and I was a little jealous. This is great recognition for the state of Mississippi to have Hollywood coming to the state.
Absolutely, yeah. So John Travolta is here for a project called Cash Out 3, and Cash Out 2 was also done here. It was ended up being called High Rollers. So you can stream that and see that. So he is no stranger to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We've been very fortunate that the Gulf Coast has been incredibly busy over the last, I would say, decade. Many projects end up there because it is so unique. There are casinos, there are beaches, there are small towns, there are bigger towns, so it can be a lot of different things. It can be a Caribbean background. So there's a project also, there's some smaller projects there on the Gulf Coast. And one of them is doubling a location for a camp in the Dominican Republic. So there's just a incredible diversity on the Gulf Coast, and the communities there are so supportive. The Gulf Coast is really booming.
I was trying to think of all of the films that have a setting in Mississippi that were filmed in Mississippi over the years, and you could probably fill in the gaps. I was thinking of movies like The Help, Mississippi Burning, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The John, what was it, A Time to Kill, I believe was the name of it. Even going back to the 50s,
Right.
Baby Doll. I remember hearing about being filmed in Mississippi. And, of course, the HBO series True Blood, I think one of the seasons was filmed in Mississippi as well, in Natchez.
Yeah. It actually wasn't a full season, so it's deceiving. It was only one. They were actually only here for an episode to establish that they were at a particular home, a historic home. So the rest was actually filmed somewhere else, but it looks like it was here. But we did have a series called Women of the Movement that was on ABC, and they were here for 4 episodes, I think 3 or 4 episodes. That was a couple of years ago. In terms of series work, our most successful series is something called Hometown, which is on HGTV, which is one of the bigger shows on HGTV, and they're based in Laurel, Mississippi, and they are in the midst of season 9. So to have a show that lasts that long is incredible, and it changes the landscape of a place completely. I mean, if you think about, I don't know how much you watch home renovation shows, Scott, but
No, not that many. But I did know the show was being filmed in Laurel.
yeah, I mean, it really changes things. If you go to Laurel now, you're going to see that there are license plates from all over the country. Sometimes it might be hard to find parking. There are people moving to Laurel and to Mississippi because of the show. Laurel, Mississippi, 10, 15 years ago, there weren't very many businesses downtown. Now it's hard to find an empty building downtown. So it really can change the scope of a town and of a jurisdiction with particular projects.
Laurel is certainly changing. Last time I drove through, I worked at a radio station, lived in Hattiesburg, had a house I shared with some guys in Hattiesburg across from Southern Miss, but I had a literal camper, a trailer behind the radio station, and I wanted to go see the spot, and the entire exit ramp off the highway was gone. I was like, I don't even know how to get there now. I don't recognize any of this. So Laurel has certainly changed. And how could we forget the unforgettable Hallmark movie? I think it was Christmas in Mississippi.
I mean, that movie continues to play every year. The Christmas movies I want to become the Christmas movie capital of the world. And we have so many great small towns, and it fits the formula of the, big city person coming to the small town and finding love, and, the high school sweetheart or whomever it was. We've had actually 3 Christmas movies filmed here. 2 are in the Natchez area. But yeah, I mean, we actually are trying to build our database of towns that really dress themselves up for the Christmas holidays so that we can put that out there to those that are making products for Hallmark and Lifetime and stuff.
The only thing you're missing for the Hallmark Christmas movie is regular snow for the hot chocolate scene.
Right. So there's room for that. Whoever wants to have that business, the
Right.
snowmaking business, there's room for that.
Nina Parikh is with the Mississippi Film Office. What's the economic impact of having these production crews come to the state?
Yeah, that's going to change for every movie, of course, just because the budgets for a movie can range from not very much to John Travolta, big budget, millions of dollars. I'll give you just a statistic from A Time to Kill. When A Time to Kill was here, that was one of the first times that our office really looked at how much money a film spent in a community. And A Time to Kill here was here for many months, and they were spending an average of $250,000 per week. So that's a good amount of money. That was about a $40 million movie. We're not always hosting that big of a movie, but that gives you a sense of like at kind of the top, how much money a movie can drop into a community. And that money is spent in so many different places. I mean, it's the obvious things like you're paying people to work, you're paying actors and actresses, you're paying the crew, but you're also, there are people that are coming from out of town. So they need hotel rooms or Airbnbs. Everybody has to be fed. You have to buy materials to build sets, costumes, plants. Nobody thinks about that. We have to, the outdoors and the indoors need to have greenery. Um, Little things like, if actors come into town with their families, do they need help with childcare? So it really, really is an incredible industry that spends money across the economy in a community.
So, Nina, what's the state doing? Are you incentivizing Hollywood to produce their films and their series in the state? And are you competitive with Alabama, with Louisiana when it comes to that industry?
Yep. So I sit on a board, an international board called the Association of Film Commissioners International. And across the globe, there are incentives that draw productions to those jurisdictions. And we are one of those. We have a very successful incentive program. It's a cash rebate. So you spend the money in the state, you go through a full audit line by line, and then the Department of Revenue decides what qualifies and what does not qualify. And at the very end, they get a check. Um, so that can be anywhere from 25 to 35% of what you spend in the state with vendors here, with your payroll here in Mississippi. We also have something special for episodic television that's slightly different, but very similar in scope. So we'd really love to draw more episodic television to Mississippi. That is then, like the hometowns of the world where the work is really done over the course of a much longer period of time and could stay here for seasons, many seasons. And so that's what every film office around the world wants to happen, to be the host of episodic television.
So, Nina, as I compare what Mississippi is doing to some other states like Georgia, I believe they recently built like a 5 million square feet complex for production. Are there plans for that? Is that in discussion in the state?
Well, we have Crooked Letter Picture Company and Sandbox Stages in the Natchez area is something that's fairly new. Tate Taylor, who's a writer, director, producer from the Jackson metro area, who now lives in the Natchez area. He was the director of Help, of Mog, Breaking News in Yuba County, Get On Up, that was about James Brown. All of those filmed in Mississippi. So he and his team are great supporters of bringing the industry to Mississippi. So they've developed some stages there and studios, and hopefully that will bring more work to that area, but also eventually maybe bring more stage work to Mississippi. The potential of studios in the northern part of the state or on the Gulf Coast, that's always been of interest. Compared to Georgia and to Louisiana, which would probably be our biggest competitors in the Southeast, we certainly don't have as many resources and infrastructure as those places, but we hold our own. We hold our own, and we look to grow for sure.
And I saw a podcast a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who the actor was, a big name Hollywood star, who was opining about how Hollywood, and not to drag you into a political conversation, Nina, but how taxes in California and all of the requirements to put on a production in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, in California, is driving many producers in the industry out of the state looking for new locations to film like Mississippi. So there, I think, is an upside for the industry, not just in Mississippi, but in other states that are going to be more welcoming and more friendly to the community to produce in states other than California.
Absolutely. I mean, the industry has become more nomadic since the early 2000s, but that continues to grow. Uh, Equipment became much more transportable and available around the world.
Yeah.
The locations, you don't want to use the same locations over and over again. Can you
No.
actually go to the real location rather than putting it in a studio? Let's not build it. Let's go to the real thing. And so people are going to those places. And as you said, in some places like Mississippi, it is easier. We have a cash rebate. That's directly, you spend it, you get audited, you get a check. There's no taxes,
Nina,
there's no waiting for filing of taxes to get that
I
money
gotta
back or selling of the
I gotta
credits.
cut you off here. Nina Parikh, director of the Mississippi Film Office. So nice to meet you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.